Hello and welcome along to the VMTV Rugby Pod as we head into the final round of the Women's Six Nations. But we must address last weekend. Of course, as always, Jenny Murphy, Fiona Hayes alongside me. Jenny, so disappointing in Twickenham for Ireland. 88 points conceded. Pretty much a terrible day and what I suppose you just expected more.
Oh yeah, it was pretty gutting as a spectator, pretty gutting for any Irish fans in the crowd, and also for the players as well. Just a really, really tough day, and one where I wasn't expecting that amount of tries. We would leak that amount of tries, and the performance that we kind of set ourselves out and we're talking about in the media in the week before. We didn't fire. We didn't look remotely dangerous first 5 minutes maybe, and then it just started to crumble from there. So yeah, really tough stuff, and just like try and pick yourself up to finish out the tournament, but definitely one that the girls aren't going to forget anytime soon.
Fiona, it's interesting what Jenny was saying there. You know, this time last week people were saying they might fire shots, they might do okay, it might be 30, 40 points. But you're overall taking it, and I know this week they've said to park it, and I get that in a championship. This game's a huge game in Belfast against Scotland. Everyone knows that. But when do they properly address this?
I think you have to address it straight away, Stuart. It's something, I've thought about. Yes, 100% it needs to be parked, and that is something, but I wouldn't be like shying away from the review. I mean, if you I did a piece on defense, and we've been talking about how good it is. We talked about it last week on the podcast, and we done a few clips on Virgin Media as well. And then I suppose you look at that, and it's 63 missed tackles. That aspect is really disappointing. You can't park that. You've got to look at how did we go wrong here? How did this happen? Is it our connections? Even myself and Jenny spoke as well while we were on the show about, the connections were definitely looking a lot different. Now, if it was after England had 7, 8, 9, 10 phases strung together, but the defense was after maybe 2, 3 phases. So that's why, you really have to look at where things were going wrong, the connections, how they set up. So I suppose from my perspective, yes, it's got to be parked. We saw how good they were against Wales down in Cork. Not such a bad defensive performance against Italy. Definitely much better against France. But I feel like this team spoke about going to a dark place, the coach in particular. That certainly didn't happen, be it what was the reasoning behind that. They would have to address that behind closed doors for a couple of days and try and see if they can get to dark place, because this match is huge. England, you can park it, but it's also, Stu, even on the show, it's questioned. You're now seeing stuff online about people questioning the validity of the tournament. Having a team put that much up on another team in a Six Nations, it's not healthy. But I don't believe that they are that much better than Ireland. They are a better squad. They're a really, really good squad. But if you said to me 30, 40 points, I'd say, yeah, around that margin. That 70 odd points, I suppose, isn't really, good enough from that perspective. So I think they'll have to look at that, but obviously focus completely shift then to Scotland, because at the end of the day, this is huge. And they know that this is a winnable game. So maybe in the back of their head, they mightn't have thought they could win the England game, which is natural, and see if that's affected how they performed.
Jenny, you've played in big games throughout your career. I'm not sure if you've ever conceded 80-odd points. Probably not, but do you have any examples where you've conceded a lot of points and over the weekend, heading into the next game, situations what you did to address it in-house? Because we don't see that in camp. We only speak from the outside.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is... there's some games where maybe you mightn't have leaked a number of points, but defensively you weren't proud with the performance. You didn't kind of do what you set out to do. Penalty count was a bit higher. Errors in comms and missed tackles again. You want to keep it under a certain number, and when those things aren't good enough, it's it's you address it as soon as possible. You're ruthless with your reflections, both with management but also with your peers. It's holding each other accountable to be better and pushing yourself to be better, and having those sometimes brutally honest conversations. Like, there's only so much time in a given week. You're not going to be able to, build the pyramids essentially with 6-7 days, but there's a lot of tidying up to be done, and there's a lot of individuals that like will know themselves that when they're wearing a green jersey and representing their country, they need to be better, and they need to put their body on the line a little bit more than they did against Twickenham or in Twickenham. Like, it's a scary, beautiful, amazing place to be, and not many people have the privilege of doing it. So you got to take those opportunities, because sometimes you get one chance to play in one of the best stadiums in the world. And unfortunately now, until some of those girls go back and maybe get a second go at that 88 is going to be looming in the back of their heads. And when they're seeing it on TV, when you're watching the men play there, if you're ever in London, you're remotely near Twickenham, near the stadium, that's the thing that's going to be lingering over them for a while. And you want to redeem yourself as quickly as possible, and that's where Scotland comes into play. So sorry, going back to the point is, like, you're having your conversations, you keep it bigger team picture as well, but you go off in your groups with the centres, your 10s together as well. I mean, like, this is what we need to do better, this is the standards, and this is what we're driving towards. Luckily, this game isn't the final game in the Six Nations. They still have an opportunity to go out and end on a much better note. But this is something where they're going to, they need to address it in camp, and then they just need to move to address Scotland as quick as possible, and then come back to this. It's not going to be one and done, and they're never going to think about it again. There's going to be a lot of video on that. There's going to be a lot of internal discussions, because that can't happen again. And they know it. The players know it themselves. It's like, we can be talking here for hours on end, but it's the girls in the changing room, it's the management that are going to have to put in the work to move it along and make really important progress soon.
We'll move it on to Saturday, the final game against Scotland. It really is huge, as much as we keep repeating it. Teams are announced. Scott Bamand's gone for 3 changes. Monaghan back in, which is great to see. Maeve Daly actually at fullback, and then Enya Breen. Fiona, which names stand out the page for you? I suppose at fullback. Hasn't played too much recently, if I'm right, at fullback. Where do you see Maeve fitting in?
Yeah, look, I think Maeve is a good player. If I was the coach of the team last week and I'm looking at that area full back, what I'm thinking is, right, am I going to risk maybe some running meters for someone that's absolutely going to get out there and make those hits? I suppose catch the high ball. Lauren Delaney probably, she'd admit herself, didn't have the best game, and we know it with this coach, Scott Bemand, that if you're not at the races, there's someone, he's giving someone else a chance to get out there. So Dealey came on. We didn't see enough of her in that game, but it would be, I suppose, a little concern of mine that when she was with the Clovers, which would have been the last block of games that she was playing, that she didn't play a lot of, I suppose, her rugby at 15. They had started her at 10. She was moved about. Aoife Corey played 15 a lot for the team. She had a couple of games under her belt, so I think Maeve is kind of in that situation as well with Connacht. She's played at 15, but she's probably in that situation where he's trying to find out where her best fit is in the team, and in the middle of a Six Nations, that's going to be hard in a player. But watching her, what she brings to the game, I think she'll attack this game, try and grab this chance and really get out there, I suppose, and bring the physical aspect, because that's what needs to be brought. If you look at last week, that's where they'll say we're disappointed in ourselves. We came away from that Wales game, not to go back to it, but we were like, wow, they're so physical. They really got themselves. So now it's a chance. It's not that that's gone now. It just didn't happen in that 80 minutes. So now they've a chance to go out there. So I think his changes, in particularly around that area, is showing me that he wants to be a little bit more physical. You've Enya in there as well. She's also got a brilliant boot in her. So you have now 2 playmakers. You've a 10 playmaker, and you've Enya there as well. We know that Dalton is a brilliant player. Maybe just those connections, and we talked about it in studio, Jenny, those connections between I suppose the wing full back and the first line of defence was too big. So there was huge issues around there. So Enya's been around a long time defensively, be it her built up her partnership with Eve Higgins might just be a little bit stronger defensively at the minute. Aoife Dalton on attack, even when she gets up into those close encounters, absolutely smashes people. She's brilliant. But I think Enya's brain and how she is clever around how she defends, moving, pushing, all that kind of stuff needs to be a little quicker. So he's definitely made those changes, I think, with defence in mind. And I suppose you have Katie Heffernan as well, who hasn't been capped in at all, and she's getting her chance coming onto the bench. So he's still trying to give girls a chance to get out there and improve. She played 12 for the Wolfhounds a couple of games for the Celtic Cup Challenge, and she impressed. So that also says to players that are watching this team that if I can go about my business and put in a good campaign, who's to say at the end of the Six Nations I won't make a squad, because he's rewarding players outside that she could have trained really well. We haven't heard much about her in camp, and then all of a sudden she's on the bench. So it's exciting to see that. I prefer it done before Six Nations, but this is the nature of, I suppose, where he's at. He's just come in. They don't get a lot of time together. So this campaign is going to be huge for him to see the players, and he's going to, I suppose, start investing a little bit more in them as he's contracting as this goes on.
Jenny, do you like the 23s picked? The changes you would have made or seen him make going forward?
Sure, Stu, what do I know? Like,
I know. That's why you're on. That's why you're paid.
Yeah,
Millions.
She'll tell you what she knows anyway, Jenny, won't you?
I'll try to give it a crack. No, I think like the change up in the back three makes sense. There's a few errors there as well, and you don't want to over adjust to. So it's like making that adjustment at full back and kind of seeing where we go from there as well. The fact
Sorry, Jenny, just to butt in on the fullback position, to start 4 games and then be dropped for your last one, for the final game of the championship. Is that like, look, I've given you a run, you're not quite there, I'm going to go with someone else?
I think it's like a lot of it is, I've got 1 game left in the tournament and I need to see other people. I need to see other people perform in that melting pot. That's one. And also it's like you're getting key markers at the starts of games that you need to be hitting. And if you're not hitting them, then you're putting you're at jeopardy of not getting selected. And like it can be for big things, it can be for small things, it can be horses for courses, and we're looking for a different kind of pace off the back of a scrum. It can be a number of different things where you're getting dropped. But I think in this instances, there's been a few errors that have consistently been there as well, and we need to kind of shore up. We leaked a lot across the back three, not just at fullback against England. So I think it's kind of on the girls there, at fullback and wings, that you're like, okay, like I need to be doing a little bit better. I need to be getting my shoulder in there, and I need to be making my tackles, because of those 63 tackles made, a lot of those key ones were in those positions where we can be like, sometimes you just need to be a speed bump. Doesn't have to be the most dominant tackle in the world. You just need to slow someone down or be as accurate as possible. And we didn't do that. And then as a result, like you sometimes get dropped to the bench. You sometimes get dropped from the team. And it's the reality of playing international rugby. And like Lauren's been around a while now. She's like more than capable of bouncing back from this, working on what she needs to work on as well. So I've been in that position as well where you've gone from starter to going to the bench, and like I think Adele showed just how positive you can react to something like that. You still work for the team, you're still making sure that you're giving it 100% and getting them primed and ready to go for Scotland, and then putting your hand up for selection when it comes to next time. But as regards the other change up in selection, I think Aoife Dalton offers a lot coming off the bench. He's extremely dynamic, very explosive, comfortable sitting in at 12 and 13, and she's can add an awful lot of pace and change up the tempo. So when we're hoping seeing like a tired Scottish legs later in the second half, someone like her coming on can be a massive boost. And then as well with Enya, like she's had a lot of experience, a calm presence on the field. She can definitely help Dana, so that it's not just one person kind of organising where the next phase of attack is going. She's really comfortable getting into that first slot position. And she's also got a boot, which I'd love to see a little bit more of as well. All those kind of changes and tweaks kind of need, like, you need to make those changes. You lost 88-10. If you're going up with the same starting team, there's something wrong. So yeah, I understand it needs to be done. It's tough for the girls that have gotten dropped, but again, like, that's the reality of playing for your country.
Fiona, if Ireland play like they did against Wales, I'll go straight to the heart of it. Do they beat Scotland?
Absolutely, Stuart. Absolutely. I think they've built a real up into that game in England, which they are parking, as they've said, but up into that game they've built a lot of resilience. It's a different type of team. I think that I've watched last year in big key pressure moments. The decision making is a lot better. I'm talking about the previous games. Obviously, we'll take England out of it, but the decision making is a lot better when the pressure is coming on. We saw it against Wales. They're coming up with the goods. Even having played not great in attack against Italy, they still scored a few tries. So I think they have the ability to score tries. And when they're defensively good, those wins in defence are pushing them and pushing them on and pushing their confidence on. So I think, yes, Scotland are an exciting attacking team. They're really good. We've seen them grow since WXV2. They seem to have found their cohesion. They're probably they're about starting the same people every week that they can, the same connections, the same partnerships. So that really stands to Scotland. But I feel like Ireland at home, they're building something this year, and they know that they need to be performing at a high level. And we saw 2 years ago with Enya slotting that winning kick to get the win. So I certainly believe if they can play like they played against Wales, even tighten up a couple of areas in attack, they'll be disappointed with some areas against Wales as well when they review the footage. This team definitely have the skill set, and definitely this year I'm starting to see the mentality that they can finish out these games and get the win.
Jenny, what do you like about this Scotland side? We've seen their team. Emma Vassell comes in, Corinne Grant, and then Meryl Smith. We saw Corinne Grant in the first game against Wales just tear it away in Cardiff, score a couple of tries, or certainly assist a couple of tries anyway. What else do you like? Is it their attack, but also they get stuck in there, to say the obvious, up in the front eight?
Yeah, they've got like a really gritty pack that are not afraid of hard work, and they keep going. Like Skelton, I think, is prime example of that massive leader in there, Malcolm as well. And then when it comes to their attacking play, it's probably one of the nicest Bar England to watch at the moment. It's really like clean, crisp passing. There's multiple options of phase play, and they're making the right decisions for the most part at the right times. They're opening up gaps. They're varied in their attack. They're not afraid to put boot to ball, and they're able to like use full width of the pitch. They don't play narrow. They're comfortable playing it for a bit. There's also some skills, like the forward pack, particularly the back row, are happy to get involved in some of those more micro plays that have a bit more involvement with ball in the air as well. They keep the ball alive. And then they have a lot of pace out wide, like Rona Lloyd. She is absolutely rapid and a really powerful runner too, difficult to take down. So they make smart decisions when they have the ball in hand. They have multiple options on an attack, and they do tend to choose what's right. They can kind of split you in two. They open the gaps up, and their work rate is a lot more. Like I was looking back at the Welsh game, for some of Ireland's later tries in the game, like the folding on the Welsh side was really poor. The work rate started to really drag down for that chase down for the Katie Corrigan kick. There was not a lot of tracking back or support coming from the Welsh side. Scotland won't play like Wales. They're not going to. It's going to be a much more difficult challenge for Ireland. And Scotland are coming off the back of some like good wins, minimal injuries on their side as well, and they'll be kind of looking to get an away win in Ireland, because we've upset them a few times right at the very end, and yeah, they want to spoil a party, and I hope that they fail massively.
Nicely put. I suppose, Fiona, they're going for 3 wins in the championship. I don't know when the last time they finished third. It's been a while though. That gets them into the World Cup automatic qualifications. Yes,
Yeah, look,
Ireland. Yes, Ireland want to get into third, but then and qualify automatically. But then they're in WXV1, or do you want them? You don't want them to finish fourth in the WXV2, but it's just a big lottery. Sam, where do you want them to finish? Obviously, you want them to win, but what's best for Ireland? It's a bigger picture question.
look, what's best for Ireland, I think, is it's not possible. So I think basically what's best for Ireland is to automatically qualify for the World Cup. So finishing third and beating Scotland would guarantee that. So depending on other results, but in general would probably guarantee that. So I think that is a positive. But then on the other side, we saw, especially with Wales, when you play in that WXV competition and you're not up to scratch, because let's just call a spade a spade. Ireland probably on the back of England to be playing in that and getting heavy losses like Wales did, it took its toll on Wales this year, and we saw them. They're not firing. They look, I suppose, depleted throughout after the first game in particular, the loss against Scotland. They weren't able to put that win in. So they've um, they've come off the back of, I suppose, losing heavily in those WXV games. So that has kind of hit them. So Ireland don't want to be in that position, but also it would be brilliant to park
So you're
that.
you're on the fence. You're on the fence here. Like, come on.
I'm on the fence. I'm one leg one way and the other leg on the other side. So I don't know. I think I'm just going to look at the here and now. And looking at the here and now, what's important for Ireland is they can get that win at home, their second win, which what we spoke about at the start of this tournament, that it would be brilliant for this side to come away with. That's what I said. Two home wins. I said it at the start. I said that's very positive. You won't, if they can get that win against Scotland, we probably won't talk about that England game for a long time till we play England again. They'll be able to park that. They'll be able to use that performance in their head when they're going forward with their journey, and they would have automatically qualified for that World Cup. So I think it is important that they get the win at home for this squad. They have the players, they've shown they can play the rugby to do it. It's now about, can they pick it up and perform? So I in the here and now, 100% get the win, finish third, and with the WXV we'll look at that then one when it happens.
Jenny, are you all hearing now? Are you all present? Are you all coached down the line? You know, one step at a time. Yeah.
Yeah, it is such a tricky one. Like, and it's pretty much the same points as Hayes. Like, they need
But
to get like
WXV2 has been perfect for Scotland.
Yeah.
that's 100%. That's ideally where you want. You want to be able to be put under pressure playing against strong teams, but also still be able to string phases of play together and not be completely dismantled, which is what England did at the weekend. And if you're playing against that constantly, like the likes of like New Zealand, England, you learn something. You always learn something from a loss, but like it's much more tricky to try and implement your game plan when you've got, you know, the red roses and the black ferns coming at you, and it's just consistent wave after wave. There's only so much learning that you can do when you're under that much pressure constantly. So, like, again, like, I'm going to jump off the fence here, but I think, like, there's more important things that we need to be doing, and we need to get a win. So, like, beating Scotland at the weekend is, you know, in our sights. They're more than capable of doing it. And then we can, you know, cross those waters, start talking about, like, WXV 1 and 2 when we get closer to it. But for the moment, a World Cup qualifier, getting that offer back would be lovely, and also ending the tournament on a high. Yeah.
Fiona, final one on Ireland, Scotland. Game plan wise, same against Wales, like trying to go wide but also kicking when it's on.
Yeah, 100%. And they've been varying up that game plan. You've seen from the first game, I suppose they've changed their kicking game. Dana really tried things against England as well that probably didn't pay off. But when you look at it, if you go back and review the footage, the idea was right. So if you're looking at the player and you're saying, right, what do you see here? England are coming at me hard and fast. There's space in the backfield. I went for a grubber. Maybe that didn't pay off, but around the decision making in the area of kicking, I'm very happy with how they're doing that and when they're doing that. So it's about trying to get that to click. So I think on attack they will 100% vary it up. Probably will have to earn it a bit more to go wide. As Jenny said, against Wales, it came, especially at times for some of the tries, it came far too easily. So they going wide off maybe 2 phases rugby won't happen for Scotland, as in you won't beat that winger 1-on-1, or they won't get there, they won't be as narrow as Wales were. But Ireland can only play what's in front of them. So I think they'll be looking at working hard in the phases. They did that against Wales. But that came off the back of really good defensive sets. Right. So I've really watched this team grow, and when they've made big hits, when they've made big chops, when they've got in the face of defense, got a turnover, it's really played into their attack. They're able to transfer that into their positivity in attack. So I think they'll be looking at to contain Scotland. I think Scotland are going to come out of the blocks, especially if you were watching them against England last week. Ireland against England, you'll be saying we are going after them out wide as well. So they're going to try and really get the ball wide. If Ireland can tighten that defensive system up, really put pressure on Scotland, I think they'll grind them down, and then we'll see some super tries and the space will eventually open up.
Well, hopefully you're correct. You were against Wales. Not sure many others were, but sure you keep reminding us of that. Jenny, Grand Slam decider. Hard to believe 26 minutes in, we haven't even touched on it. In Bordeaux, England, France. It's going to be a great occasion. I'm saying England slowly there because I think, do you believe they'll be too strong?
Yeah. I think, the fact that it's France, France are at home, it gives them a bit of a boost. But just like seeing the sheer powerhouse that is England, and how England or how France have kind of played up until this point, they're building. They're getting better, but not at the rate with which they need to be at. They're not where they need to be at in order to pose a too much of a challenge to England. If England get into 4th, 5th gear at the moment, I'm kind of like, oh, c'est la vie, like good luck.
French.
Yeah, that's all I got. Croissant, pano choc, and au revoir.
You in Toulouse? Did you watch Ireland France in game 1? Did you?
No, I think it's going to be. I think it should be a cracker if France show up. Like, you see, that's the thing. Like, sometimes you'll have France be kind of half there, not fully at the races for the tournament, and then they can just light up and play some of the best rugby that we've seen in months. I would love to see an absolute battle for that Grand Slam decider. But England's back three, their front row at the moment, like it's very difficult to see past them getting their mitts on that for another time. I think it's like 12. I remember the last time France beat
2018.
It's it would be nice to rock the boat a little bit and see a bit of an upset, but I don't see it happening.
Just on that as well, Stu and Jenny, I will say that England have gotten away with discipline issues throughout the tournament, and if they do something similar, after something, a couple of high shots or a red card like we've seen in previous games, that against France at home, the crowd behind France, it will definitely impact the game a lot more than it has done. So I think England know that and will be looking at that. But I feel like I'm 100% the same as you, Jenny, but there's a couple of areas England should worry about. One is discipline, and two is we haven't seen that French performance that we know is there from those individual players. If the coaching staff, if the players can get really up for that game, England have not been rattled in a long time, and it will go back to that mindset. Because let's be honest, we all know England are probably the best team, one of the best teams in the world right now. England know they're the best team in Europe, certainly right now. So if you can get into that mindset and get on that, and France can put in that performance, I think we could see a cracking game, but it's all dependent on France. It's not even in England's hand. I think it's in France's hands to get that performance together.
Yes, it's in a different competition, and yes, it's a while ago, but will France maybe look to New Zealand in that World Cup of what happened? Did they rattle England? Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. And look, and England have come out after that and said, look, we spoke about it last week, how they're changing their style, as in not their full style or how they play, but they're having less focus on attacking big ball carriers, go to maul. They're really trying to bring their backs into the game a lot more than they have been. So that's an area they've even seen that themselves. But if you're on a team and there's pressure on you, especially in that back line, things aren't going to plan, what do you revert back to? You revert back to what you know. So if you can bring England back into that physical battle, the French forwards in particular definitely have the physicality, the strength, the game awareness to really go after England there. It's about getting England back into that kind of format of a game. If England, our back three are firing, and their backs are Meg Jones in particular was someone we probably didn't talk about enough at times in last week's game. She's superb how she distributed the balls. You have to remember this back three are brought into by these centres. We haven't seen England do that a lot. The centres hitting it up, carrying like Jenny there, a big old ball carrier down the throat, which is effective, but we've seen their back three get more ball. So I think France are going to be looking at taking them back into that zone that France love to play, that tight, that maul. France's scrum, I think is on. They might have lost one last week, but it's at a high percentage, so their scrum is going well. Line out is not great, but it's almost like something could click into place for France at line out time. So if they can certainly go after England in those two, I'm not going to say they're going to win it, but they can definitely really get into the mindset of England, because it hasn't happened in a long time for England.
So, a final one on that, Jenny. I think we've seen Califoy and Day have been outstanding in the front row for France. They also have Menage. Are they going to need to just stop the likes of Packer and Allcroft?
Yeah, they're going to need to be massively accurate, making sure that you're trying to basically contain and make sure that they're not getting as much like bits of momentum and gain line as much as possible. So it's like being accurate at the breakdown as well, not going in and trying to get as many feet in the defensive line as possible. And then when it comes to set play, like again, accuracy, being smart about the decisions that you're being made, and not kicking to those danger fields.
Yeah. Well, the final game of the weekend, Italy against Wales. Jenny's changed location, which is great to see. She's moved into the CEO role, Fiona, which is always nice.
Yeah, but my ego didn't fit in the other room, so I decided to upgrade. Just
she's gone into the coffee room where she's normally has to go and make everyone those coffees. She's pretending she's the boss, Stu.
Fiona, Wales gone from WXV1 to staring a wooden spoon in the face. Like, it's a one-off game at the Principality. They'll want to finish the tournament on a high and at least get one win. Had a couple of wooden spoons before, but that's not the place you want to be.
Yeah, and Stu, I think it was you, the fact maestro, that told me that they hadn't won in Wales in 12 years. Wales haven't beaten Italy in Wales. I was absolutely blown away by that stat. I didn't think that at all. I think we had a full-blown argument for 5 minutes over it, Stu, but of course you were right in the end. But yes, look, the thing about Wales is they haven't clicked at times in attack. We've spoken about it. Everything's slow. Everything is very lateral, or they try and go wide too soon. But I will say they will take something from their performance against England. I thought they were absolutely brilliant at times. Defensively, they were up for it. They are hurting badly, really hurting on the back of last year's Six Nations, as you said, Stu, playing that WXV1 and jump into a situation where they might be in WXV3. You know, that's a huge jump for a team in the space of a year. So obviously it's not based on, like, they haven't had that many retirees. We've spoke about Snowsill, obviously is a huge loss for them. She's been manning the ship for a while, might have had a couple of injuries as well in certain areas, but this is basically similar team. They have Jazz Joyce back from the sevens, which should add to their attack as well, but it just hasn't seemed to happen. So I really feel like, you're saying the Principality Wales, it's been 12 years. I really feel like this Welsh team are due a win. They really are. Italy are superb in attack, but as we've seen with the Italians, at times they will do anything at all with the ball when they're under pressure. So if Wales can bring that type of game that they brought to England, yes, they lost, but I think they came off the pitch smiling with how they performed. You know, defensively they rocked it at times. Like attack, they were very good inside that 22 area when they got into the English 22. Really tight knit, how they carried low, hard, everything. So I think Scotland are due a win. So I really feel like this could be the game that will finish Scotland on a high, or finish Wales on a high. Sorry,
Yeah, not
and
Scotland, Hayes. Jesus, somebody jinxing this, man. Come on.
she loves
Carry
catching me
on
out
there.
too. I
Scotland and
know.
Wales fee. Just get
I know
on. Come on.
it's terrible, but like I really feel like this could be the games that Wales in the Principality, huge stadium, haven't really played their best attack in rugby, but will be really looking for a big performance. So I think this could be a one that they could win, and we'll see a different Wales to what we have seen so far.
Jenny, it's funny we're saying Wales are hurting, but we're forgetting about Italy. You know, they had a chance in Parma to beat Scotland, and they were up in that game and then losing 17-10. So they'll be absolutely gutted as well. So it makes a good bit of spice to this one.
Yeah, I think actually this is probably the weekend, the final weekend, where we're hopefully going to see 3 close, tight, competitive games. Being in the Principality Stadium, unbelievable stadium, absolutely cracker stadium. And sometimes there's a lot of pressure on Wales. Not only are they playing somewhere really, really special at home, you know, they don't have the best home record against Italy, which we've known from our stat king Stu. But like Italy are actually playing some decent rugby, and they've got a bit of bite about them as well. They've shown glimpses of like stringing together passes. They have like weapons both with their forwards and their backs. I'd probably leaning more towards Italy getting a win at the weekend over Wales. I just feel like, you know, it's once you don't taste wins for a while, it can be really, really hard to try and kind of go against the flow of it. And you can kind of get into the habit of losing and the habit of winning. And at the moment, Wales are unfortunately on that downwards trajectory. And Italy are on the up, and they look dangerous. They've performed well in large pockets against every team that they've played against. So I'd be probably keeping an eye out for them, and would say that they'd be my favourites for that Wales-Italy game.
You've gone off, because remember you backed Wales against Ireland, so you're really mad at Wales now. You're picking everyone.
Yeah. Oh, you're really going on each other.
Remember you wanted to say, "Oh, I hope Scotland end on a high." Remember that? Oh yeah, it was 2 minutes ago, Hayes. Yeah, I remember that.
Right, well, it's going to be 3 good games. Before you get the final predictions of the campaign, I actually want to touch on a serious subject, which it'll be interesting having both yous played in the Six Nations before. Does it hurt you, the fact, maybe hurt, is it the right word, I'll see, that people are talking about maybe a rejig in the competition, or does something need to be done differently? How do you both sit with that, Jenny, first?
It's such a special tournament, and it's one where I would hate to see it change in so many ways, because, you know, unions haven't caught up, or there's 1 or 2 that have really gone hell for leather, shown massive progress, and as a result there's this big gap that's not continuing to widen, but they continue getting better, and maybe the rate with the other unions it's a little bit slower. One of the reasons that it's so special is like the history behind it as well, and not just with the women's game but the men's game too. You've got like a lot of fans that come into it having been just fans of the men's game, and they want to watch more rugby, and it's a format which they're already, they know of, they're comfortable of. It follows the same flow and standards as the men's game, so it's an easy transition for them to make. And again, like, you have these, you're fighting against your neighbors. You're going toe to toe against someone that's a ferry ride away, or like a quick 2-hour flight, whatever might be the case. And you have those moments you can look back and be like, okay, 12 years ago was the last time that, like, you know, Wales won at home against Italy, and all these kind of stats that are out there. And then being able to speak to older players that would have played years before me, and then speaking about, you know, the magic games that they were involved in, and all the games that are potentially coming down the road, to kind of disrupt it and change it. Oh yeah, it's something that I would hate to see happen, but I can't be naive enough. It can't continue the way it is either, because it's meant to be entertaining,
Yeah.
and you can't have games that are 88-10 plus 40 plus points gap either, because you've already bought your ticket, you know the result. It's I don't know what the sweet spot is, but I will say that like positively, Ireland, albeit like we didn't see it the weekend, there is progress being made. We need like more players to play. We need like a bigger selection pool. We want it to be as competitive as possible, which is more depth as possible. But like, don't take away something that's really special, because for the last couple of years it hasn't worked. Work with what you have. Speak to other people involved in the game that have thoughts on it. Don't isolate the problem and try and fix it yourself, or do like a copy and paste of like what would work in the men's game. It's a different game that has different needs and different necessities. Talk to people that can give a solid point of view and have proper solutions in place that can maybe ensure that, like, when we're having a conversation in 3 years time and we're potentially still, you know, being employed by Virgin to some extent, that it's like those competitive battles consistently throughout the Six Nations, and it's one where all our predictions that are made are varied and different, and you don't know which way it's going to go, because that's sport and that's what makes it, you know, so enjoyable and gets your adrenaline kind of pumping.
Fiona, just on that, at the moment we have 2 really good teams and 4 battling it out. So this weekend for a Six Nations CEO of the women's game or whatever that might be, it's perfect. It's a great solution. But how do you narrow this gap without changing something? Or do you need a small change, and what is that change? Or no, not at all, Stu. We need to keep going and persisting.
I think, as Jenny nailed it on the head as well a while back, saying it's up to teams to get better. So, like, I think, yes, England, it's very clear, England and France, but I don't think that is going to be the case forever. I think, you know, if I'm looking at Ireland, we're a rugby, yes, we need more playing, but we are a rugby country. We've only just seen the investment. World Rugby have slightly stepped in. I think it's up to World Rugby to maybe, I don't know if it's funding, maybe get the house in order in these countries, step in, say, what do we need to do? It's not for England to take a step back or go elsewhere. Jenny put it perfectly, this tournament is absolutely special. It's up to us to fix it, all of us together. England can't take a step back, France can't take a step back, so we might need a year, 2 years, maybe this World Cup.
But
in
even
England,
the French are putting in a professional league. It's quite interesting. Gabrielle Vernier was saying there, she thinks the gaps come from the PWR being so good, or the Women's League in England.
Exactly.
And now the French are like, right, we're going to sort that out and go with it.
Yeah, or else it's a URC if that needs to be between Ireland, Ireland, Wales, and Scotland. But this Celtic Cup, I suppose, at the minute it's half string Scottish teams, half string Welsh teams. Our Premiership girls aren't even released from England to play in this cup, so you can't get cohesion with that. You can't think, okay, when I go to play international rugby, it's a huge step up. It's absolutely massive. Whereas, as you said, the league in England, it's a step up, but it's not huge. Every week they're playing. When they go and play with their country and play the Six Nations, of course it's a step up, but it's not as big as a Celtic Cup step up to what these Six Nations are about. So yes, 100%. I just suppose I've heard things in the background that it's coming, it's going to take time regarding this, maybe URC, or maybe this Celtic Cup being a better tournament and a longer tournament. But certainly it's the home leagues where we're playing rugby. The talent is there. It's just we've now got to do everything. We've got to do it. I coach in the AIL. I'd absolutely love if the RFU said, all right, let's have a 10-team league and let's invest and put focus in the AIL. I know I have my players and it would be absolutely brilliant, but we're in this ground where I don't know what's happening. The Celtic Cup is extending. Are the players going to only solely play with Celtic Cup? Will maybe become a situation where Munster, Leinster, Connacht and Ulster play in a URC? We just don't know. So there's so much around that evolving that it's very hard for these players to play at that level, get cohesion together, and make that step up. And even Wales spoke about, you know, their girls as well playing in England, some of them not playing in England. Then when they're all thrown back in together, they're seriously, this year in particular, lacking that cohesion. So it's something they need to look at. They certainly are. I prefer if it was a lot quicker, and we know exactly how to fix it, where to go. But it's a basic thing, Stu. Playing rugby week in, week out, maybe not playing with these players, but they're playing in the same league, they're going against each other, and when they get into a camp, there's real competitiveness there. Some players aren't even playing a lot of 15s rugby for the year, let's be honest about it. So they need to look at that. Then when you've exhausted all that, that's been set up, it's run for a couple of years. If England are still winning by 70 points, then you can say there's a problem here with the Six Nations.
Great stuff, girls. There's a lot to be said about that. It's going to go on to the future. Let's hope it sorts itself out. Right, firstly, predictions, and then there's a certain AAL final to go this weekend. I think someone's involved with it. Anyway, predictions, Jenny and Fiona, of the 3 games.
I'll go. I'm going to go Italy for the win against Wales. I'm going to go Ireland versus Scotland, and that's going to be a close one. And then I'm going to say England to finish it out and get that Grand Slam.
So you're back in Ireland? Yep.
Back in Ireland. Yep. Back in
Fiona?
Italy. Back in England.
Yeah, I'm going to say Wales, Ireland, but with Jenny, it's going to be one hell of a battle, and I think France will put it up to England, but England will power through in the end.
And what about the biggest game of the weekend on Sunday, Jenny? Let's go to you first. You know, you'll be saying, is our team going to get it done?
No, she's
against
not.
Rio away?
No, I'm going to give it to both. I think they've had the most kind of consistent team throughout the tournament. They probably played some of the nights of rugby as well. So yeah, I'm going to go with Bows, and not just because Ginger Messi is on the call with us at the moment.
Go on the Bows. Go on the Bows. The football team as well. Fiona, all the best on Sunday. Jenny, cheers. Fiona, it's been a really good couple of weeks, our campaign. Thanks for joining me as always. Don't forget to tune in on Saturday night. We're in Bordeaux in the Grand Slam decider, Le Crunch, as France take on England.
Cheers, Stu.
Thanks a million, Stu.